Welcome to your revision instructions for Year 11 separates or triple. Okay, now the idea of this website is to kind of organize your revision so that you can revise effectively and efficiently to get the best possible grades. Now, you've obviously clicked on the Year 11 separates, and this here is then the video that you're watching at this moment in time. Now, the way that it flows is it flows kind of alongside the combined. Okay, so what I'm expecting is week 1, you will then have 2 combined sessions that you've then got to complete. So week 1 will be session 1 and session 2, right? You organize those into your own schedule. The whole program itself is 15 weeks. Then in addition to that, because obviously these session 1 and session 2 are combined, there's also additional sessions for separates. Now they are shorter and smaller than the combined ones, but what they do is they focus specifically on separate science information. Sometimes there's 1 session extra, sometimes there's 2. Now, a typical session, right? So this is then looking at session number 1, cell biology. What I would do is I would do the knowledge test questions first, right? What they are is they're blank factual questions. Write them down into an exercise book. Okay, then when you've written all the answers down, check your answers using the knowledge test answers video. Anything you got wrong, you obviously need to look at and make sure that you got the factual information in your head. Then what I would do is I'd replay that, and I would then maybe verbalize or even write down the answers to the questions again. When you've done that, go to session number 1, and what it'll do, it'll come up with 5 extended questions. But what you've then got to do is you've got to write out the question and you've got to write out the answers using as much scientific terminology as you possibly can. In cell biology, there are 2 required practicals. For each one of those required practicals, you need to know the method, you need to know the equipment, you need to know the variables, you need to know exactly how you're actually going to do the practical, any issues that may well involved in it. You need to know how you're going to record your results. You're going to need to know what you're going to present your results on, whether it's a line graph, right, or there could be some other method really, but line graphs is pretty much the main one that's ever used, and then a conclusion at the end. And for this one, cell biology, there's 2. Okay, microscope and osmosis. Then, if you want to do even better, I put it down here as optional. The above and beyond is where what you're doing is you're doing questions that are designed to be not as obvious what the answer is. Now the answers are short, but the answers, right, the questions are worded in a more of a tricky way. Okay, it's really just to show a lot of understanding. Another typical session, right, may well not have a required practical, and if they haven't got a required practical, what I've put in is I've put equation practice, because what you've got to do is you've got to be able to use the equations in your exam. So look up, learn, memorize the equation, do the questions first, have a go, then go through the walkthrough. And the equations start off easy and they gradually get harder and harder and harder. Now all the way through as well, there are exam papers. So the first exam paper is session 8. So you play session 8, and then what you do is you choose the appropriate paper. So if you're doing, well, you're doing the separates, so you'll do biology paper 1 separate questions. Okay, write down your answers into an exercise book, or if you've got a copy of the paper, use the paper itself. When you've done it, mark it, right, using the walkthrough. But again, focus on what you got wrong, because that is then the most important thing. Now, when you're actually doing the triple extra sessions, there are some more exam papers in there, but they are combined higher question papers. Now, even though it isn't the separate papers, the whole idea of doing these papers isn't for your knowledge, it's exam technique. Okay, so that is then where Year 11 separates session number 1, right? So it should be session number 1 button. Write in your answers in your revision exercise book. So this is then session 1. Okay, this is then the kind of the first one that is separates only, and it's got a required practical in there that is then microbiology. So these questions in session number 1 here are specifically for the separate paper. Now, in addition, use your revision guide, use your exercise books, read around. Okay, because obviously this website and all this information doesn't have everything on it. I try to put as much on it as I possibly can, all right? But the more revision you do, the better your results are going to be. There is no doubt about that. Okay, so good luck and get revising.